It's 4 in the morning in a village in Kent. The cold wakes you before the light does. You sleep on straw with 3 other people and 1 blanket. The fire in the middle of the floor went out hours ago. Smoke from last night still sits under the thatch. You are 26 years old. You have already buried 2 children and a brother. The year is 1315 and the rain has not stopped since Easter. Everyone in the village knows the harvest is already lost. Nobody says it out loud yet. People love the medieval picture. Castles, banners, a slower life. The archaeologists digging up the actual villages find something harder. So let's walk through what would actually happen to you there. Using manor court rolls, coroners' records, and excavated cemeteries. When I say medieval, I mean roughly 1000 to 1450. England and northern France, where the records are thickest. Start with the number everyone repeats wrong. Life expectancy at birth in medieval England sat near 30. That gets misread as villages full of 30-year-old elders. What it actually measures is dead infants pulling an average down. Roughly 1 child in 5 died before their first birthday. Close to half never reached 20. Survive to 21 and the records give you your late 50s. Bishops, monks, and landholders regularly reached 70. The Middle Ages killed the young first. Everyone else arrived at old age carrying a wrecked body. At St. Mary's Spital in London, they lifted over 10,000 burials. The bones show what a working life did to people. Healed fractures in forearms and ribs, spines compressed from carrying loads on the back and head. Osteoarthritis in people who died in their 30s. Rickets in city children who grew up in shaded streets. Charlotte Roberts examined medieval English skulls for sinus damage. At some sites, around half showed chronic sinusitis, decades of hearth smoke in a room without a chimney. Their teeth, though, were better than yours. Sugar barely reached England before the 1500s, so cavities stayed rare. What destroyed teeth was the flour. Millstone shed grit into every loaf. By 40, the enamel was ground flat. The thing most likely to kill you is smaller than plague, a cut on your hand while cutting reeds in June. There is no antibiotic anywhere on earth for 600 more years. There is a poultice and a woman who knows plants. Some of that knowledge worked. Bald's Leech Book, written in England around 900, gives an eyesalve. Garlic, onion, wine, and ox bile left 9 nights in brass. In 2015, a team at Nottingham mixed it and tested it. It wiped out most of the bacteria in their model. The same tradition answered a fever by opening a vein. Barber surgeons bled patients by charts of the 4 humors. The red and white barber's pole means blood and bandages. If you are a woman, the arithmetic gets worse. Between 1 and 2% of births killed the mother. Women had 5 or 6 children over a lifetime. Multiply it out, and roughly 1 woman in 10 died giving birth. No mother survived a cesarean anywhere in Europe. The operation existed to take the child from a woman already dead. Church law required it, so the infant could be baptized. Now, go back to that rain. It started in spring 1315 and fell for 2 years. Seed rotted in the furrow. Hay could not dry, so animals starved through the winter. Salt could not be evaporated, so meat could not be kept. Wheat in England multiplied in price within months. Estimates put the dead at 10 to 15% of northern Europe. Flemish chroniclers describe people eating cats, dogs, and seed grain. Once you eat the seed grain, next spring is already decided. All of this happened 32 years before the plague arrived. Wet years brought something else into the bread. A fungus, Claviceps purpurea, grows on rye and survives the mill. Its alkaloids clamp your blood vessels shut. Fingers and feet turn black. Some victims lost limbs at the joint. Others convulsed and saw things that were not in the room. Chroniclers called it holy fire. Later, St. Anthony's fire. An outbreak in Aquitaine around 945 was recorded as killing thousands. Nobody connected it to rye bread until 1670. In a year without famine, the food is repetitive. A harvest laborer got about 2 pounds of bread a day, pottage of peas and oats cooked in one pot for days, cheese, onions, and meat only on feast days. Ale carried a large share of the calories, weak near 2%. A working man's allowance ran to a gallon of it, and they drank water constantly. The story that medieval people avoided water is a Victorian invention. Here you expect me to say they worked less than you. The claim comes from one book and one table. Juliet Schor, The Overworked American, 1991, a 13th-century English laborer, 1,620 hours a year. A modern American worker in the same table, 1,949. The gap became a meme that outlived the book. Fair question whether the number survives the sources. It does not survive them. Schor's figure counts days hired out for wages. A peasant household also farmed its own 30 acres. That labor paid no wage, so no clerk wrote it down. Gregory, Clark, and Ysbrand van der Werf tested this in 1998. Their estimate for pre-industrial England runs near 300 working days. 300 days leaves you the Sundays and little else. Clark's wage series, published in 2007, covers 1209 to 1869. Day rates did buy more bread after the plague. That raise came from about 40% of England dying. Second, those holidays were church feasts, mass in the morning, and the cow still needs milking. Harvest canceled them anyway. The weather set the schedule. The Women's Day never entered the accounts at all. Grinding grain by hand, brewing ale, hauling water, spinning thread. Judith Bennett traced that work through the Brigstock court rolls. Brewing alone shows up in hundreds of separate finds. The spinning never stopped, which is where spinster came from. Then there is the part that hours cannot measure. Around half the English peasantry in 1300 were villeins. Your labor and your body belonged to a manor. You owed week work, commonly 2 or 3 days on the Lord's fields, more at harvest, called boon work, and the whole household turned out. To marry your daughter off, you paid a fine called merchet. When you died, the Lord took your best animal. That was Harriet. The priest often took the second best. If your daughter had sex before marriage, you paid Lairwhite. These are written in the Wakefield court rolls in shillings and pence. To leave the manor, you needed the Lord's permission. Leaving without it made you a fugitive. The court ordered your neighbors to fetch you back. After the plague, labor got scarce and wages started climbing. Parliament answered with the Statute of Laborers in 1351. Asking for higher pay became a criminal offense. In 1380, a poll tax charged every adult over 15 a shilling. In June 1381, rebels from Kent and Essex walked into London. They burned the Savoy Palace and beheaded the Archbishop of Canterbury. On the 15th, Tyler was cut down at Smithfield. The promises made to the rebels were cancelled within weeks. The coroner's rolls record how often people killed each other. They list the wound, the weapon, and what the knife was worth. James Given counted them across English counties in 1977. Homicide ran from about 9 to over 100 per 100,000. Oxford in the 1340s sat at the top of that range. Manuel Eisner's European series shows the same long fall. Something near 30 per 100,000 then, about 1 today. Most killings happened between people who knew each other. Allah, a boundary strip, an insult, and a knife everyone carried. There was no police force. Your neighbors did the policing. The hue and cry made every man drop his work and chase. Failed to join and you were fined. Trial by ordeal was still running when the century opened. Carry a hot iron 9 feet, then have the burn inspected. The Fourth Lateran Council pulled priests out of it in 1215. English courts then needed defendants to consent to a jury. Refuse, and they laid weights on your chest until you agreed. Put it together. One day, spring, 1320, a village in the Midlands. You wake before dawn. There is nothing to do in the dark. Breakfast is yesterday's bread and ale, eaten standing. One room, dirt floor, rushes on it, no chimney. A cow stands behind a partition at the far end. It is inside for warmth, and a cow left outside gets stolen. It is Tuesday, so today belongs to the Lord. You plow with a team shared between 4 households. Nobody in the village owns 8 oxen alone. Your own land is scattered in strips across 3 great fields, so nobody holds all the clay and nobody holds all the loam. Dinner is bread and cheese, in the field, at noon. Work ends when the light does. Church bells set the hours. There is no clock in the village. The nearest mechanical clock sits on a cathedral, without a minute hand. At home, the fire and 1 rushlight give you the evening. A rushlight is a peeled rush dipped in mutton fat. Gilbert White measured one in 1775. 28 inches, 57 minutes. So evenings are short and crowded because everybody is in one room. Then you sleep in 2 parts. Roger Ekirch found over 500 references to first and second sleep. 4 hours down, an hour or 2 awake, then 4 more. People prayed in that gap, talked, or walked to a neighbor. Now the part where the popular picture falls apart. They washed, and they had places built for it. The Paris tax roll of 1292 lists 26 bathhouse keepers. Southwark had public bathhouses under written regulation. Soap was made in Bristol and Coventry from lye and animal fat. The plague doctor mask you are picturing is from 1619. Charles Delorme designed it in Paris long after the Black Death. Witch burnings were not medieval either. The trials peaked between 1560 and 1630 alongside Galileo. And these people were not fools. Chartres Cathedral was built with rope, geometry, and no calculus. Villagers ran 3 field rotations and argued precedent in court. They knew which willow bark eased pain long before anyone isolated salicin. What would break you has nothing to do with dirt or danger. There was no exit. You were born in a village of maybe 300 people. You would die within a day's walk of your baptism church. Your father's work was your work. Your son's work was already decided. 1 dead ox, 1 wet August, 1 fever in the wrong month. The family fell a rung it could not climb back. No savings you could keep, no appeal above the manor court. The biggest change in your life came from someone you never met. In October 1347-12, Genoese galleys tied up at Messina. The crews were already dying. In 4 years, it killed 1/3 of Europe, maybe half. The medical faculty at the University of Paris was asked why. They reported a conjunction of Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars in March 1345. That was the leading medical authority in Europe. They were working 5 centuries before anyone saw a bacterium. Keep the cathedrals. Keep the harvest festivals and the long stories. Those were real, and people laughed there as much as you do. Then add the arithmetic back in. Half the children in the churchyard. A fine to marry your daughter. The rain that started at Easter 1315 and did not stop. You would probably survive a medieval village. Most people did. You would simply never get to choose anything about it.